Hi. So, we're going to talk about desensitization right now, which sounds like a really big topic, and it is a big topic because every element of the dysregulation of the nervous system has to do with desensitization. Everything is desensitizing, or everything needs to be desensitized to in order for the nervous system to regulate. But is desensitization complicated? No, it's not. It's very simple. It's probably one of the simplest concepts. And that's wonderful because we want to desensitize in a lot of different ways, and we can. And we can also use just this really simple format, this really simple structure to desensitize with. Okay, let's say you have any kind of a physical sensitivity, like sensitivity to smells, for example, or light or whatever. I don't like to use examples of symptoms or sensitivities. So you have some kind of a sensitivity, and that means, any sensitivity that you would experience with your physical body in any way. It can be, yeah, I'm not going to use examples. You know what I mean. If you have a sensitivity, you know what I mean. So if you have a sensitivity to something, that means that at some point your nervous system started to believe that whatever it's sensitive to now, at that time, it started to believe that whatever you're sensitive to was a threat to you, or maybe the threat to you, maybe the whole reason why you were experiencing stress and trauma. Remember, the nervous system does not understand emotional stress and trauma. So when you're going through emotional stress and trauma, the nervous system has to blame something. Is it going to blame what really is the cause of the stress and trauma? It can't, because it doesn't understand it. Because maybe that's emotional abuse, or maybe that's stress and pressure at work, or maybe that's difficulties within a relationship, or maybe that's rumination. Whatever you have experienced as this sensitivity, at some point when you were ruminating or experiencing that difficulty in the relationship, because your brain and nervous system didn't understand the stressor, because it's emotional. And even if there's a physical component, there's still the emotional, right? So it's this emotional experience, nervous system doesn't understand it, but there's something around. Like, I just heard a train, so maybe it's a loud train, and at a time of feeling stress, you heard that train. Now your nervous system's sensitive to trains. We'll just use that as an example because it's not, that doesn't happen. I've never heard of that sensitivity. I used to use the example when I was working for the brain retraining program that I was working for. I used to use the example of a sensitivity to rocks or something silly like that. So when we have these sensitivities, they are a representation of an association that was created during a stressful time. Do these sensitivities need to be there? No, absolutely not. They weren't there before. Why are they here now? They're here now because your nervous system needed to blame something. So it did. It blamed whatever that thing is that you're sensitive to. Does that mean that you're always going to be sensitive to it? No. Does it mean that your nose is always going to pick up on stuff? No. Absolutely not. So the way that we desensitize is, number one, we know that all sensitivities are created by the brain and the nervous system. We know that all sensitivities are created in the brain and nervous system. We want to begin to see the stimuli, whatever it is that's causing us difficulty. We want to see that with neutrality instead of seeing it through the eyes of fear. We have this tendency to see it through the eyes of fear when it's this thing that went from being like innocent and benign to all of a sudden being really scary and like causing us symptoms. So that's one thing. We want to see it more neutrally, and we do that by seeing the science behind this. I wasn't sensitive to it before. Now I am. That doesn't make sense. that means it's my brain and nervous system, and it's not that stimuli. So we, in that way, can take space from the fear. And when we take space from fear and we become more neutral, we can see things more rationally. So when you're around that stimuli in the present or in the future, you can say, I know what's happening, and it's not that thing that's causing me symptoms. My nervous system and brain are creating the symptoms because my nervous system has created an association with the stimuli and has made that stimuli unsafe to be around, because then it can protect me. But it's not that stimuli, and it never has been that stimuli. So I don't need to be afraid. I don't need to be afraid anymore. If there's a lot of charged emotion, remember, always label, always validate, and then you can connect to that higher truth. I mean, the higher truth in this situation would be the science, would be the reorientation of the science, or to this, reorient yourself to the science. And so these are the beginning stages of desensitization, and really it's science. That's number one. Becoming less reactive emotionally to the stimuli is number two. Then it's when you have, or all of these happen kind of at the same time. I mean, I'm just listing them, but there's no, don't write down steps 1, 2, 3. They all happen at their own time, depending on your circumstance and what you're going through. And they can change, they can change from day to day depending on what you're going through. So the third part of this is that when you get sensations that seem to come from that stimuli, that instead of being like, oh no, the stimuli, you go right back to the science. Science says the reasons why I'm having these sensations, it's not because of that stimuli. It's because my brain has created an association with that stimuli. And it never did before, so it doesn't need to now, but it did because I was going through an emotionally stressful period. My brain and nervous system didn't understand, created a new sensitivity so that I couldn't go near that thing it thought was a threat. That thing couldn't have been the threat. It was my toxic relationship that was the threat, or work that was the threat, or I had like a virus or something and that was the threat to the body. But even that wasn't the threat. It was all the emotional stuff that happened before. That's why I say that, sure, it can be a physical thing, but the physical thing, there's always either emotional stuff that came before it or emotional stuff that's happening during it. A lot of people will blame, like, oh, I had this virus. You did, but what happened before that? Years of abuse? Like really difficult relationship with your mom when you always felt wrong? Like those are what we need to see clearly as being the cause of these sensitivities, and not the stimuli. The stimuli is innocent. It's an innocent bystander. It might as well like have angel wings. It's not bad and it's not wrong. And sure, we look at like chemicals, for example, where people are like, yeah, but we shouldn't be around chemicals a lot. No, I know that. We want to have a balance. I hugged somebody with perfume last night. I didn't get upset about it or worked up about it. Actually, I wore this shirt last night for a few hours, and then today I was like, ooh, that shirt's so comfortable, I'm just going to wear it again, and I don't even smell it. Which is really cool because years ago, I never would have touched this sweatshirt again or sweater again. I didn't even realize that I had hugged her, and that's a lot of growth. That's really cool. But that was because I worked on this. I worked on seeing that it wasn't the thing that I was smelling. It couldn't be. It never was. Yet I started to blame it, and I started to blame all of my symptoms on it. And then I demonized that thing, and I made it bad and wrong. I know those of you who are thinking about a stimuli that I don't want to name but starts with M. If you're thinking of that stimuli, don't try and think of it if you're not thinking of it. But if you are, and that's the thing you're like in your head, you're like, yeah, but it's, bad. And I read this, and pause. That's another thing that we can be we can have a balance around. Sure, we're not going to live in a home that stuff is everywhere. Okay, I get that. I get that. But to let me just say that I have had clients in their home who were told, you have this thing in your home and it's not safe for you to be around. And then they go to another place to regulate their nervous systems. And they do. And then they go back to their home that now they feel safer in. And they hear very shortly after that the place they were in where they recovered has that same stuff in it that they had been trying to escape. I mean, I'm telling you this, I've had that story so many times. Why is that? Why is that true? And, I know if you have no personal experience with that, or you haven't heard somebody say this happened to me, that it might be hard for you to believe that. But I'm giving you my word that these people had test results that said this was in the place where they recovered. And it was the same kind. I know your brains are going to look for evidence of disproving what I'm saying. What I'm saying is true. What I'm saying is real. I wouldn't say it to you if it wasn't. I wouldn't stare into the camera. I know you're staring into my eyes and I'm staring into yours. I would never do that if what I was saying wasn't true. What I'm saying is true. You can trust me on that. You can believe me. So, in desensitization is a process of going from being really scared and triggered by something to being less triggered and scared by something, and working on your emotional reaction to it, which is really important because a lot of times we create stories about stuff and we judge it. But if we didn't, then we wouldn't have this looping patterning going on. So if we just say, that thing wasn't the cause of what I'm going through, and if you piece it together, you will see that it wasn't the cause, that there was so much leading up to it. And I bet you could potentially even pinpoint when you became sensitive, and you can see, oh my gosh, that was during a really, really scary time, or really, a really anxious time in my life, or I was with that partner who was abusive or whatever. So in order to desensitize, we need perspective, and we want to see things clearly. We don't need anything. We want to see things clearly, right? And so when you see it from that science perspective, you can really sink into and trust the fact that this isn't causing your symptoms. Once you can do that, and you can be less fearful around that thing, that's when the magic happens. So when you have less fear and you're taking the fear away, watch the video on the feedback loop between the nervous system and the prefrontal cortex. This is where that feedback loop is really important, because you are giving less fearful feedback to the nervous system. So the nervous system's going to send less symptoms. And then when the nervous system sends less symptoms, you become even less fearful. When you become even less fearful, the nervous system sends even less symptoms. When it sends even less symptoms, you become even less. So it just is going to keep going and going until you're desensitized. And desensitization is so cool when it starts to happen. You're like, oh, I didn't have such a big reaction to that. Don't you dare think that that's a coincidence. That's from all the work you've been doing. That is from the desensitization work you've been doing. When desensitizing, I use phrases like, it's okay, that thing is okay, it's safe to be around, other people are around that thing and they're fine, my nervous system's no different than anybody else's, I am safe and I am okay around that stimuli. If you're really triggered by a stimuli and you're not ready yet to be around it, then you can desensitize by watching it. Like on a show, on TV, on a video. You can desensitize by saying the word. You can desensitize by seeing it. Like I don't want to use examples, right? I try to do that very sparingly. Let's say a box of some kind of a food. You want to see it out and be like, oh yeah, that thing. Okay. It wasn't that thing. Because, you know what I'm going to say, prior to that point of being stressed, it wasn't that thing. But now it's that thing. Does that make sense? No. I'm doing the wagging finger thing again. Sorry. So there's seeing it, being around it. Some people really like to be around it, like in small doses for short periods of time until they get triggered, and then they go and they elevate their mood. What I would say is, if you're going to do that and you want to do that, then elevate your mood before you go. And try and stay as long as you can. Don't say, I'm going to stay for 1 minute, I'm going to stay for 2 minutes, I'm going to walk 1 mile or 2 miles, and then I'm going to increase that by however much each week. Don't do that. Just keep it at, I am going to stay and be there with that thing for however it feels comfortable to. And then the next time, because you didn't force yourself and put pressure, you had a better experience with that thing. So the next time you'll want to stay longer, you'll be able to stay longer. Now, I know people are like, yeah, but then you're not growing, like increasing incrementally over time, but you don't want to because that doesn't make sense. That's not life. Each day we have a different mood. Sometimes our mood's here, sometimes it's there, sometimes it's over here, sometimes it's right here. And there's no right or wrong. It's just our mood differs from day to day, and our sleep levels and our patience. And last week I had very little patience because hormonally there's something going on, not something going on menstrual cycle wise. And that's normal. Do I still do the same amount? Like I went jogging. Do I do the same amount even though I'm more exhausted from my menstrual cycle? No. So then why are we going to force ourselves to do this, more and more and more and more and more? Instead of doing that, start with what feels comfortable. The next day, do that again. The next day, do what feels comfortable again. And what will happen is this. You'll start to increase like that, but you see it's getting higher and higher and higher, and your new normal changes all the time when you do it that way, instead of it needing to be like this line. No, that doesn't. It adds pressure and stress. Why are we going to add pressure and stress when that's what we're trying to get away from? That's what we're trying to eradicate in our lives. And I don't even like that word because that sounds pressury and stressful. It's what we're trying to overcome, right? So with desensitization, we want to become more comfortable in the discomfort of being with something. We want to become more comfortable in the discomfort of being around something. So if, last night, I'm still working on becoming more comfortable talking in front of people. Last night, I was in this circle with people. I don't know most of them. And I didn't know we were going to be speaking. And all of a sudden, this woman was like, if you want to go around and we're going to share. And I was like, oh boy. I had myself share. But what I should have done is I should have said pass. She said we could pass. And I should have, because I had gone swimming that day. And so I was like loopy. I was coming off of a week of having my son all day long, every day. I was not planning on it, so my head was not in that space, and I was just like zenned out because there was a ton of like candles everywhere, and I thought it was going to be this like sound meditation with this cacao circle. It was super cool. I guess I didn't know what a cacao circle is. I guess with cacao circles you share. I don't know. I'd never been to one. And so I wasn't prepared, and I should have passed because I'm trying to get better and better over time. But when I share, when I'm not feeling like I'm in the right headspace, then what happens? My confidence tanks. I'm like, have I ever made any progress with this? Whereas if I honored that this time and I said, you know what? I'm just going to hang back and I'm going to pass today. But now I know what to expect from cacao circles. So the next one I go to, I'll be more in that headspace to share. And if I'm not that time, that's okay too. But you go and you do what feels comfortable, and that's more loving to you. And sometimes we want to encourage ourselves more than feels comfortable, and that's okay too. As long as you are encouraging yourself, you are doing the best you can possibly do for yourself. As long as you're encouraging and not pushing and shoving. Encouraging sounds like, yes, I can. Yes, I can. Yes, I can. The reason why I thought to use desensitization as this video, two reasons. One was in between videos, I watch just like 10 minutes of a Christmas movie because I just need to reset and I just need to relax. And so, I could go in the next room and do some yoga poses if I wanted to as well. But I explained in the last video, or maybe in this video, that I had a really busy day yesterday and this morning. And so I just have been laying here just relaxing. And on the video was a couple, and they're taking a big wad of money and shoving it back and forth. And that's something that in the past has really triggered me, touching money. And seeing that used to really trigger me. So if I was in a headspace where I wanted to desensitize to that, if I were still really triggered by it, then I would rewind that and I would just watch it and I would try to find comfort in my body, even though I was uncomfortable. Sometimes that comes in the form of just like resetting the body. Sometimes that comes in the form of a lot of like self-talk. Sometimes that comes in the form of both at the same time, or one and then the other. Sometimes that comes in the form of needing to like shake out some energy and have a conversation with somebody and like get the anxious energy out. Sometimes that comes in the form of labeling your emotions and validating yourself for having them. I'm starting to talk a little bit quicker because this video is getting longer and I don't want to overwhelm you, so I'm going to slow down. Desensitization is finding comfort in discomfort, and that you can do that in any way that feels comfortable to you. It's a lot of self-talk, a lot of hand on heart. Is it connecting to a higher truth? Probably in the money situation, it's connecting to a higher truth. Those are two people I don't even know. Why am I letting that trigger me? That's so silly. And like, that's that person, that's not me. That's that person's body. That's not my body. Again, sometimes we have to really break things down for the nervous system. The nervous system doesn't understand. And then another reason why is because I was watching that video, just to reorient back to what I was saying. There were two reasons why I thought to do desensitization for this video. And the one was I was watching that and I was like, oh man, it's getting a little late. I've already done a lot of video today. Like, I just don't know if I can do another one. But I did want to, and I felt like I actually could. So I didn't even think about what to say. It just went like this. Yes, I can. Yes, I can. Yes, I can. Yes, I can. That's encouragement. That's not pushing and forcing. That's loving yourself, no matter what. So to recap, desensitization is a process of being comfortable, becoming more comfortable in discomfort, more neutral to triggers, reorienting yourself to science. It's labeling and validating emotions if they get really big. It's sometimes staying in some uncomfortable positions if you're feeling capable. If you feel like you can handle whatever happens emotionally, like whatever symptoms come up, if you're feeling strong emotionally, that's when you stay and you stay in the discomfort and you soothe and you reset your body and you say surrender, it's okay, and you reorient to the science. If you're feeling maybe a little bit tired that day and you're just like, you know what, it doesn't feel authentic to do it, that's when you say, you know what, that's okay. You don't have to. And if you're in the middle of desensitizing to something, whether you're intentionally doing it or unintentionally doing it, you can always stop. You can always leave. You can always go home. You can always stop whatever you're engaged in. You don't have to put pressure on yourself. There's no race. There's no like end line that we're trying to find, right? And we're trying to reach. Of course, we're trying to find desensitization, but there's no end line to it. There's no hard end. You'll know when you're there and it'll be the right time, right? I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you. So proud of you. You're doing great.